Catholic Commentary on today's liturgical gospel reading, Matthew 23, verses 23 to 26. The third and fourth woes denounce the scribes and Pharisees for failing to discern what is most important among spiritual matters. Jesus calls them blind because they confuse lesser things with greater things and fail to see the bigger picture of religious observance. His critique is aimed at their casuistic treatment of oaths and their neglect of fundamental obligations related to the moral and spiritual life. Regarding oaths, the scribes and Pharisees are charged with evading the responsibilities that come with sacred pledges. They make hair-splitting distinctions between oaths that are binding swearing by the gold of the temple or the gift on the altar, and those that are not swearing simply by the temple or the altar. But the notion that some oaths require fidelity and others do not is a vain attempt to dodge the duties of oath fulfillment. The whole approach is upside down. The temple and altar are the greater realities because they make sacred the gold and the gifts. Besides, all oaths have ultimate reference to God, who dwells in the sanctuary. So the attempt to distinguish between binding and non-binding oaths cannot be justified. The same can be said of swearing by heaven instead of by the throne of God. Regarding tithing, the scribes and Pharisees are careful to offer a tenth of their annual harvest to the Lord, including tiny herbs used for seasoning, mint and dill, as well as seeds used as a condiment, cumin. Of course, meticulous attention to these smallest requirements of Jewish law is not wrong. I3. But one's priorities are out of alignment when tithing herbs is done to the neglect of judgment or justice, mercy, and fidelity. It is gravely wrong to treat what is central as though it were peripheral. Jesus drives the point home by comparing the behavior of the scribes and Pharisees to the practice of pouring wine through a strainer. This was done to filter out insects, which were deemed ritually unclean, and thus unsuited for Jewish consumption. Though the scribes and Pharisees will go to such lengths to avoid ritual defilement, they end up defiled by their negligence of the Torah's most important demands. It is as though they filtered out every gnat but gulped down an entire camel, which was the largest unclean animal to walk the roads of Palestine. The fifth and sixth woes castigate the scribes and Pharisees for focusing on outward purity, while failing to maintain inward purity. Two metaphors are used as illustrations, one that compares them to half-washed dishes and another that compares them to whitewashed tombs. First, Jesus recalls the Pharisaic practice of purifying all eating utensils down to the last cup and dish. Clearly, these objects are meant to symbolize his opponents, who are like dishes that are cleansed on the outside but left unclean on the inside. In other words, the scribes and Pharisees are careful to maintain the ritual purity of the body, even while their hearts are contaminated with desires for plunder and self-indulgence. Again, they are charged with being blind to what is most important. Then Jesus makes reference to the Jewish custom of whitening tombstones and burial monuments. The practice may have involved plastering the stones with a fresh coat of chalk after weathering pitted the limestone surface. According to the law of Moses, physical contact with the dead, including their bones and graves, made a person ritually unclean, unfit to enter the Lord's sanctuary and at risk of defiling others. This practice, too, is a fitting description of the scribes and Pharisees, who maintain a pious appearance on the outside, but inside harbor the filth of hypocrisy and evil-doing. Regardless of their outward appearance, they are inwardly unclean and capable of spreading their corruption to others. From the Gospel of Matthew Catholic Commentary. Okay, that was the commentary, and here below is today's actual Gospel reading below. Matthew 23, verses 23 to 26. Jesus said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You pay tithes of mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier things of the law, judgment and mercy and fidelity. But these you should have done without neglecting the others. Blind guides who strain out the gnat and swallow the camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You cleanse the outside of cup and dish, but inside they are full of plunder and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, cleanse first the inside of the cup, so that the outside also may be clean." The Lord comes to judge the earth for the word of God, living active and sharper than any two-edged sword, and even penetrating as far as the division of Hebrews 12, soul and spirit of both joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. The word of God is living and effective, able to discern reflections and thoughts of the heart. Our Alleluia, Alleluia,